Chapter 7 Sinclair Solutions Rapture 1948. "So what's your problem with this Tenenbaum woman?" Chief Sullivan asked. He shifted in the stiff little straight-back chair across from Sinclair's desk. Glaringly visible through the big round window behind the desk, a Sinclair Solutions sign glowed in red gold neon outside against the indigo backdrop of the sea. Augustus Sinclair rubbed his clean-shaven chin at that, as if he wasn't sure of the answer himself. The pharmaceuticals investor was a trim, darkly handsome half-Panamanian in his 30s with a faint line of mustache. You had to look close to see the mustache. It wasn't just penciled in. "Well, she's been working for us. Development, you see. Me, I don't understand exactly what she's working on. Something to do with heredity, I gather. But I'm a big booster of science. That's one reason Andrew asked me down here, I guess. That's where the money is. New inventions, new drugs. Why, if a man can..." "We were talking about Bridget Tenenbaum," Sullivan reminded him. Sinclair had a tendency to rattle on, and it was almost 5 o'clock. Ryan's security chief was looking forward to half a bottle of what passed for scotch in Rapture, which he had stashed in his apartment. "This Tenenbaum," Sinclair said, running a finger along the negligible line of his mustache. "She's a damn peculiar woman, and I just want to make sure that if she's working for us, she's not breaking any rules around here. She had her own lab for a while, fancied a couple of interests around Rapture. Those guys dropped her like a hot potato. See, word got out she used to do experiments on people for this Dr. Hitler's vivisections, and I don't even know what to think about it. Now, we do some human experiments in Sinclair, you got to, but if we don't kill people off, we don't force them, we pay them good. If a man's hair turns orange and he turns acting like a monkey for a week or two, why, it doesn't do him no harm in the long run." Sinclair started to laugh, but then realized that Sinclair wasn't joking. "But Tenenbaum," Sinclair went on, "she's taking blood from people by the bucket, and more than one of them collapsed." "You're afraid you're doing something unethical?" This was a word that didn't get too much use in Rapture. Sinclair blinked. Unethical? Hell, Chief, I've been on the same page as Andrew about altruism, all that stuff, for years. Why, do you think I was brought in so early? Worrying about ethics, I don't do it. I came here to strike it rich. You won't catch me blowing my last bubble for any other personage." He jabbed a finger at Sullivan to emphasize the words, plural or singular. "I read every issue of Popular Science and Mechanics from front to back. I'm a hard charger behind the Rapture science philosophy. But..." "Yes?" "Well, there are some rules here, ain't there? I just feel like people might get up in arms if we go too far. I'm not sure this Tenenbaum isn't likely to do that, or other fellows Suchong. We got detention for troublemakers, but they've got to be, say, outright murderers, thieves, rape, major smuggling, stuff like that. We're strict about watertight integrity, and about leaving Rapture. But apart from that," Sullivan shrugged, "not much in the way of laws. Fellow opened a shop called Rapture Ground Cocoa the other day. Grows his own coke bushes under some kind of red lights. I'm hearing he makes cocaine from the leaves, or claims he does. Might be anything in those syringes. Gave me a bit of a turn seeing the people come out of there. Looked like they might get up and to any goddamn thing. But Ryan's alright with it, so I guess taking a bit of extra blood, long as it's voluntary," he shrugged, "isn't a problem." "Yeah, well, I hope it isn't." Sinclair shook his head. "My old man was sure we got to do things for the greater good, and what happened? I don't hold with worrying about anything about number one. Still, I don't want to get the public in arms neither. You hear any rumblings like that? People talking? Unions, that kind of thing?" Sullivan had been thinking about his scotch, but this stopped him. "You heard something, I take it? Mr. Ryan worries constantly about communist infiltrators. Some rumors from our maintenance guys. Heard him talking about that place the workers have made up for themselves down below. Not much more than a shack town. Who knows what goes on down there?" Sullivan pulled a paper and pencil from his coat. "Got any names for me?" Sinclair opened a desk drawer, took out a pint bottle. "A few. Care for a drink, Chief? It's that time of day. It's from my own Sinclair Spirits distillery. Very good if I do say so myself." Augustus, you're a man after my own heart. You poor? All right. Lower Wharf, Neptune's Bounty, 1949. Andrew Ryan had an odd feeling as he looked up at the sign that read Fontaine Fisheries. He and Chief Sullivan watched two burly workmen on stepladders hanging it from the ceiling of the Lower Wharf area. Ryan didn't believe in omens, anything supernatural, but there was something about that fishery sign that bothered him. Frank Fontaine had installed an office, a conveyor belt for fish, big freezers for long-term storage down below. Nothing unexpected. But the feeling of vague dread returned every time Ryan looked at the neon sign. This seemed to increase, becoming an inner shudder as the neon signs was switched on. A nice-looking sign, really, with Fontaine's in electric blue neon, fisheries in glowing yellow, under a neon fish shining against the wooden backdrop. Seen enough of Neptune's Bounty, boss? Sullivan asked, glancing at his pocket watch. It was cold in here. They could see their breath. They'd been inspecting new businesses for hours, trying to get a sense of what was taking root in Rapture. Ryan heard a splash of water on the pylons nearby and glanced over to see a small tugboat-style vessel pulling up at the wharf, the smoke from its engine sucking into vents on the low ceiling. The lower wharf was an interior space designed to look exterior, with shallow water around the jutting wooden dock and the occasional boat from neighboring chambers where fish and other goods were offloaded. Another peculiarity of Rapture, a boat that wasn't a submarine, putting around deep under the surface of the sea. Mr. Ryan, how are you, sir? Ryan turned back to Fontaine Fisheries to see Frank Fontaine standing at the open door, hands in pockets, dressed in a yellow overcoat and three-piece tailored suit, black shoes decked out in spats, bald head shining in the blue light from his sign, Fontaine's own name glowing over his head. Stamping out beside him, smoking a cigarette and squinting past the smoke, was the thuggish bodyguard Fontaine had brought in recently, Reggie something. Reggie was looking at Sullivan with a kind of smirking contempt. Ryan nodded politely. Fontaine, you seem to be settling in all right. I like the fisheries sign. Neon brightens Rapture up. Fontaine nodded, glancing up the sign. Sure. Just like the 40 deuce. Help you, Mr. Ryan? I was about to check on my fishing sub. Ah, yes, the fishing subs. I like to keep tabs on them myself. That right. Got you worried? Fontaine's tone was cool, a little mockery behind the respect. Rapture leaks enough, Ryan said wryly. We don't want too much coming in or too much slipping out. Nobody comes or goes without our authorization. For a place that likes to keep the rules down, Rapture's sure got a lot of them, Reggie muttered. We've only got as many rules as we need, Ryan said. No robbery, and nobody leaves Rapture or brings stuff we don't want here. No outside product or religion, no Bibles, holy books of any kind. Luxury goods, we're going to make our own, soon as we can. No letters, no correspondence with the outside world. Secrecy is our protection. I couldn't miss the contraband rules, Fontaine chuckled. Being as you post them in my office, big black letters, or your old man did there. Sullivan grunted to himself. I think you understand me, Ryan said, carefully keeping his tone civil. The fisheries could be a weak link. Ryan hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Fontaine was a forceful entrepreneur, and Ryan liked that. He'd even outbid Ryan Enterprises for some shop space, all in the spirit of Rapture. Ryan needed to let Fontaine know where the boundaries were. The only thing a fisherman should bring to Rapture is fish. Fontaine winked, flashing a smile. We have no trouble in identifying what fish and what isn't, Mr. Ryan. There's a smell, the scales. Reggie laughed softly. Ryan cleared his throat. We're all individuals here, Fontaine. But we're also part of the great chain of industry. The great chain unites us when we struggle in our own interests. If anyone breaks that chain by bringing in contraband, that's a weak link. Even ideas can be contraband. Fontaine smiled. The most dangerous kind, Mr. Ryan. I do wish you luck and a prosperous business, Ryan said. Might feel more like I'm part of things if you invited me to join the Rapture Council, Fontaine said mildly, lighting a cigar with a golden lighter. Have a smoke? No, thank you. Ryan examined the cigar. I presume that is a Rapture-made cigar. Naturally. Fontaine raised the cigar for Ryan to see. Ryan smiled non-committally. You perhaps have the impression the Council is some grand, powerful organization. It's a very loose commission to oversee enterprise, keep a bit of an eye on things without interfering. Time-consuming, to be honest. Ryan wasn't enthusiastic about bringing the glib, forceful Fontaine into the Rapture Council. He liked competition, but not breathing down his neck. But I'll take your request under advisement. Then we're in good shape, Fontaine said, blowing blue cigar smoke into the air. The man seemed relaxed, certain of himself, unworried, and maybe there was something in the eyes that Ryan recognized. A hint, a flicker that suggested Fontaine's willingness to do whatever he had to do to get what he wanted. Olympus Heights, 1949. Mr. Ryan likes to talk about choices, Elaine was saying. And I keep wondering if we made the right choice, coming to Rapture in the first place. We did, love, Bill said, glancing around the comfortable flat with some satisfaction. He patted her pregnant tummy absently with his left hand, his right around her shoulders. They sat gazing out at the sea from their viewing alcove. Before opening day, Ryan had purchased a great many furnishings wholesale and warehoused them in the undersea city, selling them at a profit to Rapture's entrepreneurs. He'd brought in raw materials too, and a modest manufacturing base had sprung up. Elaine's taste didn't run to the Rocco excess found in so much of Rapture. She had chosen simple lines, craftsman-style furnishings, curving darkwood, polished redwood tables, silver-framed mirrors, a smiling portrait of Bill, his mustache curling up, his russet hair starting to recede, hung over their dark, shark-leathered living room sofa. Materials found in the undersea environs around Rapture were being increasingly used in furnishings. Locally mined metals, many-hued corals for tabletops and counters, glass from deep-sea sands, even beams and brass from sunken ships. The curving windows of the viewing alcove, the glass arching over them sectioned by frames of rhenium alloy, looked out in a deep channel between towering buildings. An uneven, dull blue light prevailed through the watery space. The new glowing sign across the way, seeming to ripple in the funhouse lens of the water, read, Fun in Fort Frolic, always a grand floor show at Fleet Hall. I don't mind the smell of Rapture, Elaine said. It's kind of like the laundry room of the building I grew up in, kind of homey, some of it. We're working on that smell, love, Bill put in. A sulfur smell, too. And I don't mind so much not seeing my family, but Bill, when I think of raising a child here, she put her hand over his on her swollen belly, that's when I worry. What will the schools be like, and living without churches, without God? What will be the child learn of the world above? Just the hateful things Ryan says about it? And will she, if it is a she, will she really never get to see the sky? Oh, in time she will, love, in time. Someday when Mr. Ryan thinks it's safe, the city will be built up higher above the waves, and will come and go freely. Bob's your uncle, but that's a generation off at least. It's a dangerous world out there. Bloody atom bombs in it. I don't know, Bill. When we went to dinner in Athens Glory with him and his friends, well, Mr. Ryan ranted a good deal, don't you think? On and on about the world above and how we have to accept our choice and rejoice in it. And to be stuck in Rapture with, well, some of the people here, like that Steinman. He kept touching my face, talking about how it was so close, and yet, what did he mean? Bill chuckled and tightened his arm around her shoulders. Stollyman's a prat, all right. But don't worry, we'll all be just fine. I'm going to protect you, darling. You can trust me to do that. It'll all come out right in the end. Atlantis Express, Adonis Station, 1949. Stanley Poole had never been nervous on a reporting assignment. Maybe it was being this close to larger-than-life personalities like Andrew Ryan, Preeton's Mill, and Carlson Fiddle. Them being all casual-like, almost acting like he was not one of them. The four men were sitting together at the front of the first train car. Poole couldn't make out what Ryan and Mill were saying over the rumble of the Atlantic Express. A pensive, pinch-faced man, Mill seemed worried about something. They were all on their way to Adonis Luxury Resort, though it was far from finished. Only the Roman-style public baths were ready, steaming for bathers. Ryan wanted the Rapture Tribune to report some progress. To Poole's right were Mill and Ryan. To his left sat Carlson Fiddle, a bespectacled, nattily dressed, soft-faced man gently wringing his hands in his lap. Fiddle looked put upon and preoccupied, and prissily started as the train lurched into motion. The kind of fussy little man who made you think of an old lady. It was like he spent too much time with his mother. They'd just come from the future site of what was to be Andrew Amusements, and now as the train started for Adonis, Poole sensed that there was a story in Carlson Fiddle's pensiveness. "Well, Carlson," Poole began. "May I call you Carlson?" "No," Fiddle said, frowning at the floor. Poole winced as he took out his pen and notebook. He knew he wasn't a person who easily commanded respect. As the train passed through a tunnel, he could see its reflection in the dark window. Beyond Fiddle, the reflection was sickly, the dark glass making him look even more hollow-eyed than normal. But at best, how did anyone take him seriously, with those jutting ears, that skinny neck, and protruding Adam's apple? The gauntness was worse lately. He had trouble keeping his food down. Maybe it was the binges on booze and drugs he'd gotten into since arriving in Rapture. Poole cleared his throat and tried again. "Quite a job you've got, Mr. Fiddle. Designing Ryan Amusements, I mean. Amusement park for the kids and that ticket." He smiled encouragingly, hoping Fiddle would get the joke, but not a flicker of amusement came from the guy. Fiddle adjusted his glasses. "Yes, we'll have animatronics, some interesting exhibits planned. I'm a bit baffled about what Mr. Ryan wants exactly." He glanced sharply at Poole. "Don't quote that in the paper about me being baffled." Poole winked at Fiddle. "Oh, Mr. Ryan was clear." He lowered his voice. "And this is going to be a puff piece all the way. All about the swell new constructions coming, the new branch line, the spa. So what's this animatronics thing?" Tired of adjusting his glasses, Fiddle adjusted his tie. Oh, well, not everyone calls it that, but there was that Westinghouse exhibit in 39 with the Electro, the robot, and his little pal Sparko. The kind of thing, animated mannequins, some say. They'll talk to visitors. "Animated mannequins, do tell." Fiddle went back to gently wringing his hands on his lap. "It'll be about the history of Rapture. I'd like to put in some fairy tale material, too, to keep the kids coming back. Maybe something like Walt Disney called cartoons. But he will... Never mind, just print that I think it's a wonderful project. I'm looking forward to making it a reality." "Sure thing." The train jolted as it took a turn, rising up to pass into the transparent tunnel through the sea. Coldly magnificent, like some sunken fairyland, Rapture rose about them. A school of big fish zigzagged by, glinting silver. A private bathysphere whipped along below them as they entered another building. Poole glanced over at Ryan and Mill when Mill raised his voice. "He does keep implying, Andrew, that eventually—" Come, Ryan said equably. "You worry too much, Pretense. Augustus is not some predator of the seas." Mill snorted bitterly. "And what does Sinclair mean when he says, 'Enjoy the Atlantic Express while you're at it'?" "Oh, that's just one businessman using a bit of psychology on another. He plans to make you an offer and wants you to worry about a takeover. Keep you off balance. Perfectly normal business tactic. But it's not a public company. Perhaps it should be. You need not sell out to Sinclair. You could pump up your liquidity by selling shares freely about Rapture. Rapture is still growing. It's possible that it's a bubble that will never burst. You will want the capital for investment, Pretense. Here's our new luxury resort." Train slowed as they came into the station near Adonis. Poole, scribbling on his notebook, was somehow aware of Ryan's scrutiny. He looked up to see Andrew Ryan frowning at him. Ryan raised an inquiring eyebrow. "Do you remember our talk? Nothing unauthorized, Poole." Poole swallowed, tempted to point out that Ryan's heavy hand on Rapture's newspaper was counter to his talk of freedom, But then Ryan was the major shareholder of the Tribune, and Stanley Poole had never heard of a newspaper that expressed an opinion its owners didn't like. "You betcha, Mr. Ryan," Poole said cheerfully, winking. He rubbed his nose, but quickly stopped, knowing it was an irritating mannerism. Man, he'd like to get out from under that hawkish gaze of Ryan's, get a bottle of Sinclair's spirits, and get a little sniff from La Marquise d'Epoque, and that new liquor and drug shop on Fort Frolic. "This branch line, Mr. Ryan, mighty impressive, quite a view." Ryan nodded, his expression becoming neutral, but he kept staring, a look that could be felt like a finger prodding at Poole's forehead. "I do think I may have some special assignments for you in time, Poole. If you prove to be discreet, I'll need someone very discreet indeed." The doors of the train slid open, and Ryan forgot about Poole, turning to clap Pretense on the shoulder, smiling. "The doors were a tad slow to open once we arrived, don't you think, Pretense? Let's make them brisker. Let's keep Rapture moving ahead." Medical Pavilion, 1949. "Bill, do we really have to do this?" Elaine whispered as she lay back on the examination table, awaiting Dr. Suchong. "Why do I have to see these two? I don't think that Tenenbaum woman even is a doctor. And Suchong, he's some kind of brain surgeon or something. What does he know about obstetrics?" She smoothed out the hospital gown so it covered a bit more of her pregnant, swollen belly. Bill patted her tummy. "The regular doctor was booked up, love. I mentioned to Ryan you having some unusual cramps, and he insisted that someone would see to you. Tenenbaum and Suchong are working with Gil Alexander, who's doing a bit of work for Ryan." He shrugged. Elaine licked her lips and said nervously, "I heard someone says she's got a reputation for being kind of crazy. Her experiments." "I haven't heard that. She's just another genius type that Ryan took an interest in. She's odd. They all are. Can't make people understand what she wants half the time." "Ah," Dr. Suchong said, busting in, his glasses catching the shine in the overhead lamp. His thin Asian face had a faint gloss of sweat. "Here is the Sun Mother." Bridget Tenenbaum came drifting in after him, a very young woman, superficially pretty but with a bruised-looking eyes, a shapeless bob of brown hair, a distant expression on her face. Both of them wore lab coats, Tenenbaum with the skirt of a shabby brown dress showing under her white coat. "Third trimester, yes?" she said. "Interesting." Her accent, mixing German and Eastern European, was almost as pronounced as Suchong's. "Well fed, yes? Circulation good?" Elaine scowled. Bill could see she felt like a lab animal. Tenenbaum hadn't even said hello, but it was true. She wasn't what you'd call a physician. She just happened to be available today. It was all a bit slapdash for Bill's liking. "Yes, she is. What is the expression, well along?" Suchong remarked, prodding at Elaine's belly. "Yes, I can feel the offsprings moving, almost ready for emergence. The creature wishes to come out and feed." Tenenbaum had turned to a nearby table of instruments, moving them minutely, squaring them up so that they were precise right angles and equidistant. "Miss McDonough," Suchong said, examining Elaine's thighs, "does fetus make the reflex movements with the extremities?" Elaine rolled her eyes. "Do you mean does the little one kick, Doctor?" "The child does, yes." "Excellent sign. Long since I have examined the fetus. Difficult to obtain them in healthy state." He stepped around her to her feet, reached out and pulled her legs apart with a sharp, decisive movement of his hands, like a butcher preparing to gut a chicken. Elaine made a squeak of surprise. "Here, Doc, easy on my girl," Bill said. Suchong was lifting up the hospital gown, and he and Tenenbaum were both leaning over the exam table, frowning at Elaine's private parts. Suchong grunted, pointing. "Interesting distinction, there and there, you see. Part of peculiar metamorphosis of pregnant woman." "Yes, I see," Tenenbaum said. "I have dissected many in this stage. Inevitable. Perhaps you have specimens?" "No, not all my specimens were taken when the Americans came, but—" "Bill," Elaine squeaked, snapping her legs shut and pressing the gown over her crotch. Right. See any problems, you two? Bill said. Suchong looked at him in puzzlement. No, but she will do very well. It would be interesting to probe a bit. It won't be necessary, Doc. We're off. Bill helped Elaine down from the table. One love. Back in here. Here's your clothes. Time to get dressed. He heard Andrew Ryan's voice from the lab next door. There you are, Suchong. Is all well? Suchong said, Yes, nothing abnormal. I'm glad you are here, Mr. Ryan. Please, to look at experiment 37. Bill stepped to the door of the lab with a half a mind to tell Ryan how coarsely Elaine had been treated, but he stopped staring. Andrew Ryan, Suchong, Gil Alexander, a researcher who worked for Ryan most of the time, and Bridget Tenenbaum were gathered around a big motley figure in a sort of glass coffin filled with water. The case was hooked up to a tangle of translucent tubes. Bill had only met Gil Alexander a few times, a serious-eyed man with a thick mustache. He was quite professional and intelligent, but seemed to Bill cold-blooded. Stretched out in the glass coffin was a man whose body seemed a patchwork of flesh and, in some places, steel. Corpse pale, the man lay motionless in the bubbling water. Bill thought it could have been a drowning victim. Gil Alexander was adjusting a tube sinking into the supine man's left leg. A little information, not bad. We have good induction. Bill found himself staring at the exposed left leg. It looked as if flesh and metal were fused at the thigh. It was all puckered, and Bill thought he saw the skin quiver, as if reacting to a profusion of bubbles. He wanted to speak up or leave, but there was something that held him, something weirdly fascinating in the scene. You see, Mr. Ryan, Tenenbaum said, fusion is incomplete, but I feel if we were to perhaps try viral gene transfer, they make the body more capable of unifying with... Bah, Suchong said, glancing at her in annoyance. You always think the gene's the way. Viral transfer of genes is entirely theoretical, not needed. Body can be conditioned so that the cell bonds with metal. We have no way to control genes without a breeding program. Forgive me, Doctor, she said, her voice faintly contemptuous, as she needlessly straightened tools on a nearby table. But you are mistaken. The wave will reveal itself to us when we consider Gregor Mendel. Alexander seemed amused by the simmering between Suchong and Tenenbaum. He smiled. Bill noticed, but said nothing. Ryan made a dismissive gesture as he frowned over the figure in the transparent, liquid-fueled coffin. I am more interested in the practical uses. I need a process that makes our men capable of longer hours out there. Cool! Bill burst out as the legs of the supine man contracted, an arm or knee striking the top of the glass case, cracking it. Water spurted up through the crack. Ryan and Suchong turned to stare at Bill. Tenenbaum and Alexander seemed more caught up in the changing the flow of a chemical through the tubes that communicated with the glass coffin. Bill, Ryan said softly, coming over to him. I thought you'd gone. Just leaving, Bill said. That fellow in there, is he all right? Him? Oh, he's a volunteer, helping us with an experiment. Ryan took his arm. Come, let's leave them to it, shall we? How's Elaine? And he escorted Bill from the lab. Fort Frolic, 1949. Bing Crosby crooned Rapture troubles and dreams from flower-shaped speakers, and Bill hummed along as he escorted Elaine along the upper atrium. There was just time for a stroll before the musical at Fleet Hall. Bill had brought Elaine for a Christmas season outing. Their friend Mariska Lutz was looking after the baby. It's funny about this place, Elaine muttered as she had, and Bill strolled along the balcony of the Poseidon Plaza in neon-bright upper atrium of Fort Frolic. Elaine wore a shiny pink satin dress, and Bill wore a white linen suit. Other couples hurried by, dressed up, hair coiffured, faces glowing with laughter. Almost like New York, Bill thought. What's funny about it, love? He asked. They were passing the entrance to the Surprise Games of Chance Casino, with its big knight's helmet projecting between Sir and Prize. The neon sign seemed to radiate sheer insistence in an enclosed space. There was no sky to put them in perspective. Well, I mean, I thought it'd be really different from the surface world. It is, of course, in some ways, but... She glanced through the windows at the people working the slot machines. The idea was to bring just the best of the world down with us, but maybe he brought some of the worst too. Bill chuckled, tucking her hand under his arm. What happens when a place is saddled with people, love? They bring the worst and the best of them wherever they go. People got to have some place to let their hair down. Got to have their Fort Frolic. They went down the stairs to the lower atrium, past Robertson's Tobacceria, and she sighed as they passed Eve's garden. She looked at its askins. A strip club was necessary, was it? Bill shrugged. Especially necessary, some would say. With all them men we've got down here, men building, working maintenance. Now me, I don't need any such diversion. I've got the best looking bird in Rapture to admire. Oh, don't expect a strip show, she batted her eyes at him like a flapper in a movie. Until we get home, I mean. Ask my girl. She laughed. Oh, I don't mean to sound like a blue nose. Let's get some wine at Sinclair Spirits, or maybe something in the Ryan Club. You'd probably rather have ale. It's wine for my lady, but we've got tickets for the show at Fleet Hall, love. I thought we'd have our drinks after. Oh, Fleet Hall, I've been wanting to see it at floodlight theater places, kind of cramped. Fleet's big. Mr. Ryan planned for big all throughout Rapture. She glanced quizzically up at him. You really admire Mr. Ryan, don't you, Bill? What, me? You know I do. Gave me everything I got. He has. I was installing toilets, love, and he made me a builder of a new world. They passed the liquor and drug emporium, La Marquise de l'Epoque, which was quite thronged, mostly with young men. He saw someone new inside, the rat-faced Stanley Poole, shifting from foot to foot, nervously buying a vial of some narcotic. Bill hurried on, not wanting to talk about the place with his wife, not wanting to make small talk with that exorable Poole. The piped music had become fat-swallowed jazzly, banging out the jitterbug waltz. Happy voices echoed from the high spaces of the atrium. People looked a bit ghostly in the reflected light of the neon, but they were happy ghosts, smiling, teasing one another. The young, red-haired woman squealed as a young man pinched her. She remembered to slap him, but not very hard. Bill saw one of Sullivan's constables, a big, Pat Candavish, looking like a hotel dick in his cheap suit and badge, swaggering about, hands in his pockets and gun on his hip, leering at a parcel of young girls. Elaine brightened when they came to the Sophia salon, and Bill resigned himself to standing about with his hands in his pockets as Elaine poked through the finery in the high-fashion boutique. He bought her a nightgown and a new coat to be delivered to their flat, and then it was time to go back upstairs to Fleet Hall. They hurried out of the boutique and up the stairs, where Bill spotted the architect, Daniel Wales, talking to Augustus Sinclair. But the younger Wales was in close conversation with the merciful businessman, and didn't even look up. Bill peered up at the ceiling, thinking about watertight integrity. He was pleased to see no sign of leakage. Some parts of Rapture were more surreptitiously maintained than the other. This one was pampered like a baby's bottom. It seemed to Bill that Rapture was thriving. The Atlantic Express rumbled efficiently from one building to another. Shops bustled for business. Rapture's galleries and atriums glowed with light. Its Art Deco fixtures seemingly gleamed with gold leaf. Crews of workers kept the carpets clean, picked up trash, and repaired cracks in the bulkheads. Looking down at the lower atrium, the increasing crowd, and the shining signs, Rapture seemed fully alive, thriving with economic brio. And just maybe Mr. Ryan, the Wales brothers, Greavy, just maybe they couldn't have done it without Bill McDonough. Bill and Elaine reached Fleet Hall, pausing to admire the grand blue and white sign. The archway was tricked out with radiant lines of white neon. A buzz of mingled conversations came from the inside. Bill pressed Elaine's arm to him, and bent and kissed her cheek. They went in. The big, ornate concert hall was thronged, and they had seats in the orchestra section. The lights went down, the band struck up, and the musical Patrick and Moira commenced. It was a Sander Cohen production, thankfully without Cohen in it, and Elaine was enthralled. Bill found it all rather sentimental and a tad morbid. The play was about a ghostly couple who found each other in the afterlife. But he was happy to be there with Elaine, pleased to see she was having a good time. She seemed lost in the occasion. Now he felt like they'd really found their place in the world, deep under the sea. Heat loss monitoring, Hephaestus, 1950. Bill almost had the heat monitor adjusted. Temperature control was now just one of Rapture's numerous points of vulnerability. One of many maintenance incompetents that had to be constantly adjusted to keep the city from breaking down. The city under the sea had been settled for just 2 years, a little less, but there was a great deal of repair to be done already. Caught between fire and ice, Bill thought. A certain amount of cold water outside Rapture was drawn in through sea vents to modify the heat from the volcanic gases used to drive the turbines. Water in one was cold enough to kill a man from hypothermia in under a minute. The water on the other hot enough to boil him. Bill had witnessed both tragedies. Bill turned wheels to balance the mix of frigid coolant and volcanically heated water. He glanced out the window into the sea, where a complex of transparent pipes glowed dull red, conveying mineral-rich heated water from the geothermal sources. Bill could faintly smell sulfur, though they tried hard to filter it all out. Still and all, the air in Rapture was usually cleaner than it was in New York City. Clean air was provided by gardens like Arcadia and the intake vents in the lighthouse structures. The heat meters were bobbing just right now. He had the balance. Pablo Navarro was working at the other end of the apparatus-crowded room with Roland Wallace and Stanley Tiburtz. That Navarro is always looking out for a leg up, Wallace grumbled, coming over. Wants to be a head engineer of a section, don't you know? Ask Greavy's call, mate, and I don't know what Pablo keeps at the job hard enough to deserve that title. How's Tiburtz working out? Getting work done. Good technical know-how, but those Aussies, they're odd. He's the sullen sort, don't you know? Every Australian I ever knew was a sullen old sod, Bill said absently, eyeing the meters. Holding steady so far. Anyway, there's an intercom buzz for you. Mr. Ryan wants you in central control. Should have told me before. Ride him off. Bill checked the meters once more and then hurried out, hoping Elaine would be working in Ryan's office. He found Ryan pacing in the front of his desk, no sign of Elaine. Ah, Bill, I sent Elaine home early. Bill felt a sudden inner coldness. Is she all right? Yes, Ryan said distractedly. Seemed fine, wanted to look in on the nanny. Perhaps she came back to work too soon after the baby was born. How is the child? Little one's all right as rain, smiling and waving her arms about like she's conducting a band. Splendid. Bill hoped Elaine was all right, but she had insisted on getting a sitter and going back to work. She seemed to get a cabin fever in the flat. Not easy to take a baby in a stroller through the park in Rapture. Bit of a journey to the small park areas. Bill, would you come with me? I have a chat with Julie Langford. I'd like your opinion on the new tea garden in Arcadia. Some other things, plenty to talk along the way. They traversed several passages and then entered a transparent corridor between buildings, sauntering untouched through the sea itself, heat vectored through the floor, protecting them from the North Atlantic's frigidity. I'm hearing rumblings in Rapture I don't like, Bill, Ryan muttered, pausing to watch a school of bright fish swim frantically by, pursued by an orca. Out there, it's all it should be. The big fish eat the smaller fish. Some fish elude predators and thrive, but here, there are those who disturb the balance. Bill stepped up beside Ryan, two of them gazing through the glass like two people chatting in an aquarium. Rumbling, Skopner? Which sort? The pipe sort or the people sort? It's the people, if you want to call them that. Ryan shook his head and added, parasites. His mouth twisted sharply with the word. I thought we would weed them all out, but people are tainted. Bill, there are rumors of union organizers here in Rapture. Unions in my city. Someone is encouraging them. I'd like to know who and why. I haven't heard anything quite like that myself, Bill remarked. Stanley Poole caught some union talk in the tavern. There's a pamphlet being passed around complaining about unfairness to the workmen of Rapture. People being tense. They naturally need to blow off steam, Gov. Toss around their ideas, free-like. Even some ideas we don't like. Mr. Ryan. Unions and whatnot. Now, I won't defend them, he added hastily, but they're as kind of a marketplace for ideas too, yeah? People need to be able to trade in ideas. Marketplace of ideas. Maybe. I tried to be tolerant with unions. We saw where that leads. Bill decided not to argue that one. They both silently watched a blue whale swim majestically overhead. Bubbles streamed up him from the seabed. Lights blinked on the buildings of Rapture, rising spectrally through the blue-green water. The Wales brothers' designs mixed sweeping lines with a certain artful intricacy. The architecture seemed calculated to project boldness, even bravado. A neon sign across the watery way, running vertically down a building that could almost have been from mid-Manhattan, read Fleet Hall. Another neon sign glowed in grape purple to advertise Morley's Winery, the letters rippling with intervening sea currents. Most of the apartment buildings had square windows, not portholes. For the most part, they looked like apartment buildings on dry land. The effect at all times was more like a sunken Atlantis than a metropolis deliberately built beneath the sea. As if the polar ice caps had melted, flooding Manhattan, its steel and stone canyons immersed in a deep, mysterious watery world without a clear horizon. It could be, Ryan went on at last, that we were too hasty in some of our recruiting for Rapture. I may have picked some people who are not as like-minded as I hoped. Most of the people believe in Rapture Way, Mr. Ryan. There's plenty of free enterprise in Rapture. Bill smiled as a stream of bubbles rose a few inches beyond the glass. Splumpling with it. You hearten me, Bill. I hope everyone stays busy, competing, carving out their place in the new world. Everyone would branch out, create new business. Do you still plan on opening a tavern? Right enough, I do. Fighting McDonough's, it'll be called. After me old man. He was a boxer in his youth. I'll have a grand opening party for you. Ryan looked up toward the height of the towers mounting to the sea. Hard to see the tops of many of them from here. He took a deep breath, looking pleased, seeming to buoy into a better mood. Look at it, rising like an orchestral climax. Rapture is a miracle, Bill. The only kind of miracle that matters. The kind a real man creates with his own two hands. It should be celebrated every day. Miracles need a lot of maintenance, Mr. Ryan. Thing is, we're short on people to deal with the sewage, the cleaning and the landscaping in Arcadia. We've got posh types who never suffered worse than a paper cut, but precious few who can dig a ditch or plumb a pipe. We'll have to lure men who have the skills we need then. Find ways to house them. We'll bring them in, don't you worry about that. The light attracts the enlightened, Bill. Bill wondered how that would work out, bringing ever more blue-collared workers, men who might not take to a place where the governor despised unions. Could be more trouble down the road. Ryan said with satisfaction. The supply sub is coming in. They watched the submarine ghost by overhead, its lights glowing against the indigo depths. From here, its lines muted by depths, the sub looked like a giant creature of the sea itself, another kind of whale. It would be heading to Neptune's bounty. Bill watched the sub angle downward for the hangar-sized intake airlock that led up to the wharf at Fontaine Fisheries. Dunno, Bill said, who might be encouraging unions, but I can tell you one person I don't much trust is that Frank Fontaine. Ryan shrugged. He's quite the productive one. He's got a lot of enterprise rolling. He keeps me thinking. I like the competition. Adding as if thinking ahead, within reason. Fontaine had worked with Peach Wilkins to develop a way to do Rapture's fishing more discreetly, underwater. A few simple adaptations of the smaller subs, refitting them to dragnets. They had purposely subaquatic fishings. But the fishery gave Fontaine a potential access to something that Bill knew what made Ryan nervous. The outside world. His subs left Rapture on business of their own, and they might be contacting anyone out there. Every year, Ryan cut more ties with the surface world, liquidating his properties, selling factories and railroads. You think maybe Fontaine's using the subs to bring in contraband love? He asked suddenly. I'm monitoring that possibility. I warned him. It seemed to me he took that warning seriously. some smuggling's going on, Mr. Ryan, Bill pointed out. A Bible turned up in the workers' quarters. Bibles? Ryan said the word with loathing. Yes, Sullivan told me. The man says he bought it from a fellow I don't know over in Apollo Square. Bill had no love for religion himself, but privately, he thought some people probably needed it as a safety valve. All I can tell you, Mr. Ryan, is I've never trusted that bugger Fontaine. He talks all silkly, but none of it feels like real silk. You can't assume anything, you know. Come along. Bill sighed, something he got tired of being come along Bill. An electrical eye triggered the semicircular Securus door to slide open. They strode along corridors decorated with posters extolling the glories of Rapture's commerce, down a curving stairway to a bathysphere station where a banner declared commerce, independence, creativity. Ryan remained silent, brooding as they went. Bill expected to take the Atlantic Express, but Ryan ignored the train station and continued to match Rapture Metro. They passed a party of maintenance workers who tipped their hats to Ryan. He paused and shook hands all around. How's it going, boys? Patching up the ceiling? Good. Good. Don't forget to invest some part of your paychecks in one of Rapture's new businesses. Keep it growing, fellas. You working for Bill here? If he isn't treating you right, don't tell me about it. They laughed all around in that. Start complimenting plumbing business. Give old Bill here a run for his money, huh? How do you like the new park of ours, by the way? Seen it yet? Fine place to take the ladies. When he was in the mood, Ryan could be quite convivial, even chummy with the workmen. He seemed almost to be performing for Bill today. Ryan put his hands in his pockets and rocked on his heels as he reflected. When I was a young boy, my father took me to a park. Well, it was in a foreign capital. The Tsar was still alive then, but my father's business was faltering, and that park lifted his spirits. This is where I met your mother, he said. So, boys, if you want to meet the right young miss, we've got just the place. Plenty of privacy for sparking the ladies, huh? The workman laughed. He clapped two of them on the shoulders, wishing them a profitable day's work, and sent them on their way. The men went away beaming. They'd be able to boast of chatting with the great Andrew Ryan. Ryan led Bill into the waiting bathysphere. When its hatch lowered into place, Ryan tapped the selector for the destination and hit the go lever. The bathysphere dropped neatly into its passageway and sent out horizontally with a bubbling whoosh. The two men sat back, riding in a companionable quiet till they were about halfway to the nearest airlock for Arcadia, when Ryan said, Bill, have you heard residents whining about not being permitted to leave Rapture? Here and there, Bill admitted reluctantly. He didn't want to snitch on anyone. You know, we cannot trust anyone outside Rapture, Bill. We'd have American intelligence agents down here, or the jackals from the KGB, fast as... He snapped his fingers. It'd be hard for some down here, sir. There's someone has wondered if they might have the right chance migrating to Rapture. I have no respect for quitters. You don't visit Rapture. It's a way of life. He shook his head bitterly. They are spineless. They were told before they came that there were certain inviolatable rules. No one leaves. There's no place for men like us on the surface. Bill was in awe of Ryan. He knew it, and Ryan knew it. But maybe it was time to give Ryan some gruff about this lockdown. Maybe he was afraid that if Ryan stuck to his policy, it could be explosive. It's human nature, Governor, to want freedom to come and go. People get stir-crazy, like when you pen them up. You believe a man should make a choice, but how can the poor sod choose to stay in Rapture? He took that choice away. A man has thousands of choices in Rapture, but that one he gave up when he came to this world. A world I created. I built it with money and resources earned with my sweat. And it's all about the absurd whining. In time, we will expand Rapture across the seabed. There will be far more room to move about. He flicked his hand in a gesture of contemptuous impatience. They entered into a contract coming here. In the end, our choices make us what we are. A man chooses, Bill. They choose, and they must accept the responsibility. Bill cleared his throat. Natural enough for me, for some blokes to want to change their minds. The bathysphere reached its destination, clunking into place. The hatch creaked open, but Ryan made no move to get out. He remained in his seat, looking at Bill with a new solemnity. Have you changed your mind, Bill? Bill was taken by surprise. No, this is my home, Mr. Ryan. I built this place with my bare hands. He shrugged. You asked what I heard. Ryan looked at him for a long moment, as if peering into Bill's soul. Finally, he nodded. Very well, Bill. But I'll tell you something. The residents of Rapture will be purged of the habits of ant society. They must learn to stand up beside us like men and build. I plan to start a new program of civic education, banners, a great many more of them, educational announcements on television and public address, and billboards. I'm bringing in someone to help us train them to see that the world outside Rapture is a real prison. The Rapture is the real freedom. Ryan climbed out of the bathysphere. Come along, Bill. Come along. Thank you. That was part 6 of Bioshock Rapture. Thank you for listening, and good night.